In 1959, Ip Man Donnie Yen is settling into his low-profile life in Hong Kong. The film begins with Ip Man practicing his techniques on a wooden dummy as a moth, foreshadowing the future, gently flutters and lands on the dummy. A young Bruce Lee, Danny Chan, visits Ip and asks to become one of his students. After Lee demonstrates his speed to Ip, Ip neither accepts nor rejects him and tells him to come back later. Ip Ching is seen fighting with another boy, Chung Feng, at school, and both boys end up with minor injuries. Wing Sing, along with Ip, is asked by Miss Wong, the boy's teacher, to come to the school. As an apology, the Ip family invite Chung Feng to their home for dinner. At Ip's house, Chung Feng displays rudimentary yet impressive Wing Chun skills. When Ip asks the boy who his mentor is, he says that it is his father, Chung Tin Chi. Chung shows up to pick up his son shortly after. Chung Feng is very poor, and his father pulls carts for a living. Chung is seen participating in black market boxing matches and having a streak of victories. The organizer, Ma King Sang, a local triad leader, also works for Frank, Mike Tyson, an American property developer. Frank orders Ma to acquire a piece of land occupied by the school where Ip Ching and Chung Feng study. Ma asks for a month for it to be done, but is threatened into assuring that it will be done within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Frank is impressed by Chung's Wing Chun skills. The next day, when Ip goes to pick up his son from school, he witnesses Ma and his men coercing and beating the headmaster, who refuses to sell them the school. Ip interferes and restrains Ma, but is forced to let Ma go, as Ma's men are holding Miss Wong at knife point. Ip seeks help from Sergeant Po, called Fat Po by his friends, a close friend of his and a local police detective. Fat Po agrees to help Ip, but claims a shortage of manpower and influence. IP then agrees to guard the school alongside his students. That night, Ip and his students watch the school compound. Leek, Ip's oldest student, develops a crush on Miss Wong, but the latter promptly rejects his advances. Realizing that it was getting late, Ip suggests Lick and the other students return home. However, immediately after that, Ma's men invade the compound. Although Ip and his students are able to hold them at bay, they are still outnumbered as the gang manages to kidnap the headmaster and set fire to a few classrooms. Chung, who happens to pass by, helps fight off the invaders and rescues the headmaster. Chung Tin Chi's skills impress Ip, and Ip thanks Chung Tin Chi for his help. Tin Ngo San, a local martial arts master and Ma's former mentor, is enraged by Ma's unscrupulous acts and, accompanied by Ip, confronts Ma at the Hong Kong shipyard and slaps him in front of his men. Ma retaliates with a hidden knife, but Ip is able to stop him from nearly stabbing Tin and again restrains him. Fat Po arrives and keeps the situation at bay, but Ip eventually lets Ma go to de-escalate the situation. Humiliated, Ma finds Chung Tin Chi and offers him a job to get revenge against Tin on his behalf. Desperate for money to open his own martial arts school, Chung accepts the offer. Meanwhile, Wing Sing is diagnosed with stomach cancer. Chung, whose face is hidden with a bandana, finds Tin in his umbrella shop and proceeds to fight him, with Tin failing to defend himself against his assailant's swift blows, and ends up in the hospital with a broken arm. Ip receives a call from the hospital and visits Tin. Upon learning that Tin did not call him, Ip realizes that it was a setup by Ma to lure him away from the school so that his gang could kidnap some of the students, including Ip Ching and Chung Feng. Ip arrives at Ma's shipyard surrounded by Ma's men. Ma, who is holding Ip Ching at knife point, threatens to sell the kids off to slavery if the headmaster still refuses to surrender the school. Upon learning that his son was also kidnapped, Chung Tin Chi arrives, picks him up, and promptly leaves. But after his son tells him that his friends are still there, he returns and fights alongside Ip. Ip and Chung are able to hold their own until a troop of policemen led by Fat Po comes to arrest the gang, while Ma flees. Ma is later fired by Frank after the incident and is replaced by a proficient Thai boxer to go after Ip instead. Returning home, Ip is told by Wing Sing about her condition and that she may only live for 6 more months. While taking Wing Sing to the clinic, Ip is attacked by the Thai boxer, who is promptly defeated after a few moves. Fat Po later tells Ip about Frank, who wants to eliminate Ip at all costs for obstructing his plans. Ip decides to confront Frank in his office. Frank challenges Ip to a 3-minute fight. If Ip can withstand his fists for 3 minutes, he would leave the school, Ip, and his family alone, a challenge that Ip accepts. From the outset, Ip is seemingly overwhelmed by the sheer muscle and force of Frank, who dominates the fight thoroughly. Realizing he is no match for Frank in terms of speed and power, Ip attacks Frank's footwork instead and is able to launch a few punches on him. Just as both are about to launch a decisive blow on each other, the 3 minutes had passed. Ip leaves the office and Frank keeps his promise, seemingly impressed. Chung Tin-chi, with the money he obtained from Ma earlier, opens his martial arts school and claims that his Wing Chun is genuine, while Ip's isn't. Chung proceeds to defeat a number of martial arts masters and becomes famous in the news. Finally, he challenges Ip to a battle that will decide who is the true Grandmaster of Wing Chun. Meanwhile, Ip spends more time with his dying wife. On the day of the match, Ip chooses not to attend, but instead goes out dancing with Wing Sing after having been taught a few moves by Bruce Lee, whom Ip finally accepts as a student. Some of those who attend the match become impatient as Chung Tin-chi waits for his opponent. Ultimately, Chung Tin-chi is declared the winner, owing to Ip's failure to attend. Wing Sing, despite being happy about Ip's decision to accompany her, makes an appointment with Chung Tin-chi for another match on Ip's behalf, as she knew that Ip would have attended if not for her condition. Wing Sing accompanies Ip to the fight. They first fight with 6.5-point poles, which Ip and Chung Tin-chi fight to a standstill. They then fight with butterfly swords, with Ip seeming to win narrowly. When Chung loses his swords, Ip throws his away, and they proceed to fight without weapons. They both seem evenly matched, with both being able to deliver several blows to each other. However, Chung Tin-chi successfully lands a blow to Ip's right eye, temporarily blinding him. Chung Tin-chi's victory seemed certain, but Ip evades Chung Tin-chi's following hits with his hearing and counters Chung with a 1-inch punch, despite not being able to see. Defeated, Chung relinquishes his title as the Grandmaster of Wing Chun and chooses to destroy the banner that proclaimed himself to be the Grandmaster. Ip then remarks that what's most important are the ones closest to us, and leaves. In the epilogue, it is revealed that Wing Sing died in 1960, and that Ip helped make Wing Chun well known internationally and left a legacy.